They say you can't choose your family, but I sometimes wonder if I was accidentally switched at birth. There's no other explanation that makes sense. My name is Ivy, quiet, invisible Ivy, and if there's one thing I've mastered, it's the art of being overlooked. In our house, my older sister Heather was the sun, and I was the shadow. She radiated charm, beauty, and charisma. Everything about her sparkled. Every word she spoke seemed to matter. And me? I was the afterthought. The extra place set at the table. The one who learned how to swallow her words because no one ever asked her what she thought. Growing up, I learned quickly where I stood. When Heather wanted ballet lessons, she got them, along with sequin tutus and pink satin slippers. When I asked for a sketch pad and pencils, my mother barely looked up from her magazine. "We'll see," she muttered. We never did. The sketch pad never came. Birthdays were the worst. Heather's were grand productions, balloons, custom cakes, piles of gifts wrapped in shiny paper. Mine? A store-bought cake if I was lucky. One year, I got a sweater 2 sizes too big, still with the clearance tag on. "At least you got something," my mom said when I asked about it. "Stop being so ungrateful." Ungrateful. That word clung to me like a stain. Even school didn't offer much escape. I wasn't unpopular, just unnoticed. Teachers forgot I was there unless I spoke up. I kept my head down, passed my exams, came home. It was a routine, quiet, invisible routine. Heather knew she was the favorite, and she used it like a weapon. "Maybe if you smiled more," she'd say with a fake pout. "You always look so miserable." Sometimes she'd bring her friends over and laugh just a little too loud when I passed by, whispering behind their hands like we weren't even related. I remember once, I must have been 14. I made dinner when my mom came home late. I set the table, made her favorite spaghetti, even lit a candle. She looked around and asked, "Did Heather do this?" I said, "No, I did." She just blinked and said, "Huh," before sitting down to eat. She didn't even say thank you. And that was a pattern. Always Heather. Always her needs, her wins, her tears. I could be bleeding on the kitchen floor, and they'd ask Heather if she was okay. By the time I turned 18, I'd stopped trying to win their attention. I worked part-time at a bookstore, saved what little I could. I kept to myself, drew in my sketchbooks, built quiet worlds where I mattered. Then came the lottery ticket. It was a joke, really. I was buying milk, and the clerk said, "Feeling lucky today." I shrugged and handed over a crumpled bill. Sure, why not? I didn't expect anything. I forgot about the ticket until 2 days later, when I cleaned out my bag and saw it again. I checked the numbers on my phone. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I double-checked, triple-checked. I had won $6.5 million. My heart stopped. My breath hitched. And in that moment, just one electric, unbelievable moment, I felt something I had never felt before. Power. Real, undeniable power. Not because of the money, but because now, finally, I had a choice. I could walk away. And I would. I didn't tell anyone. Not right away. In those first few days after the win, I lived like I was floating through someone else's life. I woke up, went to work, came home, listened to Mom talk about Heather's new haircut, her latest photo shoot, her important meetings. On the outside, everything looked the same. But inside, something had shifted. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, clutching the lottery ticket like it was some kind of sacred relic. I must have checked the numbers 100 times, comparing them over and over again with the official website, making sure I wasn't imagining it. $30 million. It didn't feel real. But it was real. And so was the realization that came with it. I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. Every time Mom passed me in the hallway without a glance, every time she praised Heather's natural talent, while ignoring my art school acceptance letter that she'd torn up because it was a waste of time, it all came rushing back with a new, almost terrifying clarity. They had forgotten me. No, worse. They'd chosen to forget me. I think that was when I started planning. Not out loud, not even in full sentences, just thoughts. Little seeds. What would happen if I just left? If I disappeared from their lives the way they had erased me from theirs? Would they notice? Would they care? I already knew the answer. So I kept the secret close to my chest, wore my silence like armor, and I waited for the right moment. For my moment, it wasn't supposed to be like this. At least that's what I told myself every time I hesitated. But the more I stayed, the more I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. The feeling that this house, these people, were never going to be enough for me. They were never going to see me the way I deserved to be seen. The lottery win hadn't just given me money, it had given me something I hadn't had in years. A way out. It started small. I'd find myself looking at apartments online, imagining the life I could have if I just made the break. But then I'd remember Heather's upcoming charity event, and how Mom would expect me to be there to support the family. The thought made my chest tighten, and I felt sick. But no, not anymore. No more being the background character in their perfect little life. One evening, it all came crashing down. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through listings for apartments when Mom walked in, her voice too sweet as she chirped. "What are you doing, Ivy? You should be helping me with the guest list for Heather's fundraiser." That was it. The last straw. For once, I didn't bite back the bitterness that had been simmering for years. "I don't want to help, Mom," I said, my voice low but steady. "I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want to be your second choice." Her face went pale, and I could see the shock in her eyes. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ivy wasn't supposed to talk back. Ivy was supposed to be the quiet one, the one who took what was given and never complained. But I had complained. For years, in my own way. I just hadn't spoken the words, until now. Her lips pressed together, thin and tight, and she stood there for a moment, as if processing what I'd said. Then she snapped, "Don't be ridiculous, Ivy. You're not going anywhere. You don't have the right to walk away from this family." And that's when I knew. I knew it was time. The weight of her words hung in the air, but they didn't land on me the way they used to. I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. I wasn't going to cower. Not this time. "I'm not going to stay here, pretending to be someone I'm not," I said, standing up slowly. "And you can't stop me." The house seemed colder now, the air heavier with every step I took toward the door. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in on me, trying to keep me tethered to this life I'd outgrown. But I couldn't stay anymore. I couldn't pretend. I grabbed my bag from the table and looked around one last time. The pictures on the walls, the family portraits that had always made me feel like an outsider, felt suffocating. They no longer held any meaning to me. They were just reminders of everything I wasn't. Heather's voice broke through my thoughts. "Ivy, where are you going?" I turned to see her standing in the hallway, her face twisted with confusion. She was probably wondering why I wasn't falling in line like I always had. Why I wasn't playing my part in the perfect family drama. "I'm leaving," I said quietly, but my voice was firm. "I'm not going to be your backup anymore. I'm done." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw something in them that I hadn't noticed before. Fear. Fear of losing her grip on me. Fear that I might actually do what I said I would. "You can't just leave," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "This is our family, Ivy. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to fit in." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "I don't fit in here, Heather. Not like you do. You always get what you want. And I'm just the one who has to make it all look perfect for you." Her expression faltered for a moment, the anger in her eyes replaced by something more vulnerable. But before I could say anything else, Mom appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You're making a mistake, Ivy," she said, her voice cold, almost mechanical. "You don't understand how important this family is. You're throwing it all away over some childish rebellion." My heart beat faster, but I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't the little girl they could manipulate into obedience. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said, stepping toward her. "I'm finally choosing something for myself, something real." I pushed past them, the door creaking open as I stepped into the night. The cool air hit my face, but it didn't feel cold. It felt like freedom. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do or where I was going to go, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not to them, not to that life. And as I walked away, I felt something inside me shift, a sense of power I had never known before, the feeling of being in control of my own destiny, the feeling of breaking free. The further I walked, the lighter I felt, but the more I questioned myself. Freedom was supposed to feel empowering, right? But all I felt was a strange emptiness, a void that stretched far beyond the physical distance between me and the house I had spent my entire life in. I had chosen this, but I couldn't shake the guilt that came with it. The city was alive, bustling with people rushing to places I would never belong. I wandered aimlessly, passing familiar streets that now seemed foreign. It wasn't just the physical space I had to adjust to, it was everything I had known. For the first time in my life, I was completely alone. I found myself at a small park, sitting on a weather bench that seemed as tired as I felt. The silence was deafening, but somehow, it was also a relief. No more demands, no more expectations. It felt as if the world had paused, waiting for me to catch up. But there was still the question of what came next. I pulled my phone from my pocket, staring at the screen, unsure of who to contact. I could call friends, but none of them knew the real me. The me that had been hidden beneath the shadow of my family. I could call my father, but he wasn't here, wasn't in my life in any real way. He was just a memory, a ghost of someone I had once wished would come to my rescue. And now even that seemed irrelevant. A text pinged on my screen, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was from Heather. "Where are you? This is ridiculous. You don't need to do this." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to tell her everything, how I'd felt all these years, the weight of being invisible, of being the invisible one. The other part of me wanted to erase it all, lock her out and never look back. But I couldn't, not yet. I typed slowly, carefully considering my words. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, and you need to understand that." I hit send, then locked my phone, slipping it back into my bag. I wasn't ready for any more conversations like that. Not now. Not yet. I needed space. I needed time to breathe. As the evening settled in, I started walking again, feeling the faint chill of the night air settle in my bones. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here forever. I had to keep moving. I passed a small cafe with warm light spilling through the windows. I hadn't eaten all day, and my stomach growled in protest. Hesitating for only a moment, I stepped inside. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods was intoxicating, and for the first time today, I felt the flicker of comfort. I sat at a small table by the window, staring out into the street. It felt strange, ordering a coffee for myself. For so long, I had always been the one who took care of everyone else, of Heather, of Mom, even of Dad when he was around. But today, I was the one in need, the one who was allowed to take up space in this world. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, savoring the heat. I had taken the first step, but I wasn't sure yet where that step would lead me. All I knew was that I wasn't going back, not to the old life, not to the roles they had cast me in. I had to find myself first, and that was a journey I had to take alone. The days blurred together. I was no longer sure if I was running toward something or away from it. The city, vast and unyielding, was both my escape and my cage. Every morning, I walked the streets, not quite knowing where I was headed, but following the subtle pull of something, hope, maybe, or just the faintest idea of what could be. I rented a small apartment above a bookstore, the kind of place that smelled like old pages and coffee. The walls were thin, and the floors creaked with every step, but it was mine. It was the first time in my life I had a space that no one else had touched, no one else had claimed as their own. I could paint the walls if I wanted, rearrange the furniture 1,000 different ways, or just let the dust settle in peace. It was freedom. And yet, it felt a bit like I was faking it. The loneliness crept in at night. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made the right choice. Sometimes, I still felt the weight of their voices in my head, especially Heather's. Her words were still fresh, still stung. She didn't understand why I had to leave. But I had to leave. It was the only way I could figure out who I really was. I started taking long walks, exploring different neighborhoods. I found myself in places I had never been, not because they were far, but because I had been too afraid to venture out. The world outside felt new and dangerous yet exhilarating. I would walk until my legs were tired and my mind was empty, sometimes venturing into shops I never would have dared to enter before. Vintage clothing stores, quirky cafes with mismatched furniture, and art galleries with paintings that made no sense but somehow spoke to me.